Hi and welcome to the TonePrint Editor tutorial Infinite Edition. If you haven't seen this pedal before, it was just announced at the time that this video was published. It's a sample sustainer, so it does exactly what it says on the tin, but it does a bit more. So in essence, what it does is you create any sound with the guitar, tap the pedal, and it creates a sustain tail. So it'll sustain this ad infinitum, or until you stop it by double tapping it. It does a few more things than this, so let's find out what they are. Let's jump into the TonePrint Editor and start working it. As typical on a TC electronic TonePrint enabled pedal, the first thing that you see once you load a TonePrint and load it for editing is the router tab. Slight difference from your typical TonePrint pedal though, this router tab is actually quite complex. It's usually a couple of dials. In this case you have 9 and the kill dry switch. We can start by this one, the kill dry switch. What it does is kill your dry sound. The thing about the kill dry switch is even if you kill it, you can still send your guitar signal to the sustain processor. So I can do this. And even though you couldn't hear my direct signal, you can hear the tail. But I'm going to turn off kill dry because I actually want to hear my direct sound. And let's go up. Return and send, so dial number 1, dial number 8, pertain exclusively to the control of the effects loop in the compact pedal. So return controls the amount of signal that returns to the pedal, the send controls the amount of signal that goes out to the effects loop. So if you're sending way too much signal to whatever effect you put in there, turn this one down. If the pedal that you put in the loop, imagine you put a fuzz in and it's really loud, you can control it here on the return. Don't forget that all of these values are measured in full scale. So 0 dB full scale is maximum, minus 100 is as good as muted. I'm not using the effects loop for this demo, so I'm going to leave these values at minus 100. The second dial you can see here is the input to sustain, and also typical in a TonePrint pedal, it controls the level of signal that goes into the sustain or the effects processor, in this case the sample sustainer. So if I leave it at 0 and create a tail, you hear a tail. If I cut it down and try to create a tail, you don't get a tail because there was no signal reaching the processor. Obviously, if you only knock it down by, say, minus 10 dB, the tail is there, but very soft because it didn't go in with as much level as when it goes in at 0. Quick tip on using the pedal. The best way of guaranteeing glitch-free performance out of the pedal is to attack your note, and as it's coming down, when it stabilizes into the decay phase, you tap the switch. So like this. So you kind of need a stable signal to do it, because if you try and do it at the same time that you're attacking the note, it gets glitchy. It's rather quick. It grabs a really short slice of the signal, but sometimes you can hear it get glitchy and a bit rhythmical if you do it precisely at the wrong time. So do that. Attack your note and try and grab the sample from a stable part of the signal. See? Okay, so that's the input to sustain, which I'm going to leave at 0. And I'm going to jump diagonally to sustain out, which, once again, typical TC electronic, is the level of signal that comes out of the processor, in this case, the volume of the tail. So this one is usually mapped to the level knob, as it indicates. So if I create a tail, there it is. I can turn it off, or I can bring it as high as it'll go. I'm going to leave it close to minus 6. Yep, there we go. Another two things about the pedal. It has a reverb processor integrated, which is basically a Hall of Fame. Awesome, right? And on the compact, you can control with this little toggle switch at the top that toggles between dry and verb. So when the little orange light is on, it's got the reverb on. That switch is kind of replicated in the TonePrint Editor with this dial, enable reverb, at the bottom. So if I flip it to off, orange light goes off. If I flip it to on, orange light comes on. Another tip, sometimes you're going to be flipping through tone prints, and even though you have your toggle switch on dry, like this, if you load a tone print that has reverb, it's going to be activated by default. So if you really want to turn reverb off, you'll have to toggle on, toggle off, okay, without accessing the TonePrint Editor, obviously. But again, for the purpose of the demo, I'm going to leave the reverb on, and let's see how it works in the router page. So, as you can hear, this is my dry sound. If I create a tail, this is also dry. Even though, because it's a continuous sound, it's kind of difficult to understand if it's dry or wet with reverb or something. But let me see if I can show you that it is indeed wet. I'm going to start by opening up Reverb Out, which is the last of the dials that controls the reverb. Again, -100 to 0. 0 is maximum. And this controls the output of the reverb. If this is cut, nothing happens. It's almost the same as cutting this off. So let's put reverb out at 0, and now we're left with 3 dials. The first one controls how much of the sustained tail goes to the reverb. So I'm going to open this up, create another tail. You're going to get bored of this sound. There's a tail. And now you can hear that there is something more than what I created. So I'm going to turn this off and on. And you hear that it got bigger, and it's not wider because this is mono, but you can hear that there's an envelope to the sound. But my dry sound is still, in effect, dry, right? So if I bring up input to reverb control, my direct sound is no longer dry. But if I stop the tail, I turn off the pedal. That was a good one. My direct sound is dry again, even though I have all of these at 100%. So if you want the pedal to give you reverb, even with when the tail is off, instead of using input to reverb control, you use input to reverb always. And now the pedal's off, the reverb light is still on, but I have no tail coming in, but I have wet sound on my direct guitar. So I'm going to create another tail. My tail's there, stop the guitar. I have reverb there, and I have... and I have reverb here. Now, listen to what happens if I also open the input to reverb control. I get twice as much reverb on my direct sound, because now I'm sending the same direct signal twice into the reverb tail. So this, I'm going to stop the tail, and the reverb drops because I was using both of them. So when I stop the pedal, the input reverb control gets shut down, and only the reverb always gets in. So once again, this is always. I'm going to create a tail, and now my direct sound is being sent also through the input to reverb control. Stop the tail, and my guitar sound comes a bit more forward. Personally, I prefer using the input to reverb always, because it's more controllable for me. It's more dependable from the point of view I know exactly what I'm getting. And I don't always want my guitar sound to disappear in a sea of reverb just because I created a tail. But if that's what you want to do, if you want to have a relatively dry sound when you're... this is not very dry, but this is. So just a little bit of ambience. But you want your guitar to disappear as you create a tail, then you can absolutely increase the reverb with the reverb control. So here I'm only using the input reverb always. now my guitar is at the back too, with the tail. And comes forward again as I turn off the tail. Okay, so this is how the reverb works. I'm going to turn this one off and leave the other two on, and we're going to jump next to the second tab, which is the infinite tab, i.e. where the sample sustainer magic happens. First two controls we can see are decay and fade in, again mapped to the two knobs in the pedal, these two, and they control the speed at which your tails come in and fade out. I'm going to demo that by turning both of them off, almost. And I'm going to create a tail and mute my guitar signal as quickly as I can so that you can hear or try to hear how quickly the tail is established. And then I'm going to kill the sustain so you can see how quickly it dies. So see, I muted the guitar and the tail was almost there, so I'm going to kill it now. You kill it by double tapping, as I said, and it's an almost instant death. If I turn off the reverb, so I'm going to turn it off there, I'll do it again. So really quick to establish, almost instant to go away. I'm now going to flip the switches to flip the pods to the maximum position, do it again. See, now it takes a long time to establish, and similarly, a really long time to die. Obviously, if you have reverb enabled, then it's even longer. I'm going to return these two to a more average situation. Yep, that's good. And now we're going to skip over the inf damp dial, I'll tell you why in a second, and go straight to the layers menu. The layers menu is where you can control the number of layers that you're going to be able to stack on top of each other as you're playing. L1 means one layer, so you record one layer. And when you try to record a second one, the first one disappears. And again, gone until you stop the pedal. With L2, you can record two layers, and then when you try to record a third one, the first one goes away. So it's first in, first out. Let's do it again, the same example. So that's one layer. That's two layers, and I'm going to try to record a third one. And now the first one has disappeared, and you have only 2 and 3. So effectively, again, 1 and 2, and I'm doing another one. And the other one disappeared, and now you have layers 3 and 4, which again 1 and 2, and so on and so on. L3 is going to be the same, but with 3 layers. Not even worth demonstrating because it's exactly the same thing. It just means that you can actually now record a triad. Actually, let's do that. Pretty right. And now you can try and go. And it replaced the first note that we played, keeping the other ones. So you can keep changing chords as you're swapping notes inside your triads. But then you have infinite mode. And in the infinite mode, as you can imagine by the name, you just keep recording and keep recording until you turn it off. So let's try that. See, and they're all still there. Go away. Okay. And this is very interesting if you're just stacking notes or stacking harmonies on top of each other, one note at a time. But the problem with this is you can't then replace notes as they come along. Unless you go here and use the inf damp control. It means infinite damp, and you can go from 0, i.e. no damping, to a maximum of 12 dB. And what this infinite damp control means is every time you record a layer, whatever is there is going to be dampened, i.e. lowered by this amount. I'm going to I'm just going to go whole hog 12 dB and try and record another thing. So let's start. Layer 1. Oop. Okay, you can hear it. I'm going to bring it up. You can hear that. I'm going to record a second one. And you heard the first one go down. And as I recorded this one, the other two went down again. And again, the other three at this point went down again. Keep in mind that this 12 dB reduction happens every time you record a new layer. So you record 1, it's at 0, record 2, this one drops 12, record 3, this drops another 12, this drops 12, so minus 24, minus 12, 0, etc., etc. If you don't want this effect to be as pronounced, but you still want that effect to be there, you can obviously use lower values, such as 3 dB or around that. So I recorded 6 layers there, each layer making the other ones drop by 3 dB. So 3 times 5, it's a 15 dB drop on my first layer, and the 12 dB drop on the second, etc., etc. So after a few layers, you have effectively muted the first one, and you're now recording clean. So if you want to keep swapping chords around by building triads, this is a really interesting way of doing it. I'm going to put it back on L1 though. Yeah, this control only works on the infinite mode, so don't worry about it. And let's look at the pedal again and see what it has here on the Latch switch. Latch and Momentary. The way that we have it configured now, it's in Latch. If we, and every time we build a layer, the light comes red and it's on until you turn it off. Momentary does exactly what you're thinking. I create my layer, and it only stays on as long as I'm keeping the pedal pressed in, and the light is green instead of red to remind you. So I take it off, it goes away. But what if you want to build layers on top of this? So it works easily for one layer, right? But what if you want to build infinite layers, or let's try 3 layers? Notice the time that it takes for the green light to go away when I take my finger out. So it's on. I'm going to take my finger out. While that green light is on, you can play another note and press the pedal again, and it'll build on top of what was there. So let's try this. So it's there. I'm going to play another note and press again. And if you notice, because the green light was still on, it's building on what was there. Again. See? And now if I take my finger off, green light goes off, everything goes away. This is how we build in Momentary mode. I'm going to flip it back to latching mode, because that's what we're doing today. I forgot to tell you, if some of these concepts are a bit foreign to you and you don't know how I got here, please go watch my playlist on the TonePrint Editor series. The first video explains how to navigate around this, second one explains how to create your own tone prints, and then there's a few individual ones that will talk about the individual pedals. I will talk a bit more about that right now when we get to, let me just change this to L1, when we get to EQ types. I've already talked about these EQ types, I think either in the Hall of Fame or the Flashback, I can't remember. Go watch both of them, they're really good. The Infinite provides you with a couple of EQ bands under filter low type and filter high type that you can use to sculpt your layer sound, your sustain tail sound. To demonstrate the effect of the EQ, I'm going to create a tail, a sustain tail with both low and high frequencies. Okay, and as you can hear, I have an open 6th string and harmonics on the 1st and 2nd, so I've got low and high, and I'm going to try and play a very simple line on top of this. It's there, but I kind of feel like these notes are getting in the way of it. So I'm going to go to my high type, and I'm going to select a high shelf and knock this down a bit. So see the difference with lots of high-end cut down? Okay, now you see it. I've already explained how these work, as I said, in either a flashback or a Hall of Fame video, but very quickly, low cut cuts low frequencies above this frequency with a slope filter, either first or second order. First order 6 dB per octave to 12 dB per octave. High cut does the same above this frequency. Low shelf is like the type of filter that makes everything pivot around the point, either more, less. And the slope of the point is given by this thing, so 3, 6, 9, or 12 dB per octave. And the high shelf does exactly the same, but the other way. So low shelf, low frequencies, high shelf, high frequencies. That's how they work. Experiment with them and see what it does for you. Just to demonstrate, I'm going to create another tail. Actually, I'm going to deactivate them and then activate them again. I'm going to generate a very similar sustain tail. So both low and high frequencies. And if I activate a low cut, I can get rid of the bottom string. Like this, roughly. And if I activate the high cut, I can get rid of the really sparkly high end. So I still have stuff in it. I still have the meat of the harmony, but now it's neither bothering the low end or the high end. If, on the other hand, you want to scoop mids, you can do a low shelf and a high shelf. And now you have more lows and more highs. It's a way of sculpting your sound within the sustain tail. This does not affect your direct sound, only the tail. Moving on, we've got the Modulation tab. Please go watch, I think it was the third video in the series where I talk about the Modulation tab that's common to every TonePrint pedal. So all of the chorus, flanger, vibrato, Hall of Fame, flashback, all of them have this tab on. I explained all of these parameters in this video, but just so you can hear what it does in this situation, the modulation does not affect direct sound, only affects the tail, the sustain tail. So this is what happens when you activate a through zero flanger. All of the swirls, it's just amazing. As you can see, it does not affect the direct sound. But the tail gains another dimension. Going to turn that off, going to turn this off. Again, go watch that video, all of these parameters are explained there. And finally, you have the Reverb tab. This is, in effect, a Hall of Fame inside this pedal. We've already said that it was when the reverb is on. Once again, go watch the Hall of Fame video. I'm putting the link somewhere, either in the description or on the top of the video. And it's the same thing that you can find on the Reverb page of the Hall of Fame, with the exception of the Rev type menu. In the Hall of Fame, if you want to change the algorithm, you have to start with a TonePrint that already has the algorithm that you want. Here, you can simply open a menu and pick halls, cathedral, church, live, or spring reverb. You can do everything from inside this tab. So this is a spring. Let's change for a church. So your guitar is at the end of the whole thing. What else? Product settings basically just tells me the default state of the dip switches inside the pedal. I've got it in true bypass, and there's an option for buffered bypass. I've got it kill dry off, which is roughly the same thing as doing the kill dry always there, but on a hardware level if you want to put it in kill dry on. And finally, you've got knob mapping. It works the same way in every TonePrint pedal. So you've seen this before. You have on video number 2, I think. And you can save your TonePrint and give it a funky name, and it'll show up in the user tab of the main TonePrint Editor window. That's it for the Infinite. It's, as usual for TonePrint pedals, it's powerful. You can customize a lot of stuff and transform it into your own pedal. I hope you found the video useful. If you did, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, hit the bell if you want to be notified whenever I release more content, and there is going to be more content featuring the Infinite at some point. While I'm talking about subscribers, thank you. It was real amazing to see the channel grow above 2,000 subscribers. So thank you if you're one of them. If you're not, consider subscribing. It helps the channel through YouTube's algorithm because it shows it to more people. And if you want to help support the channel, you can join the list of people who've already bought me a coffee in the past year and helped keep the channel's lights on. If you want to join the list, please do so. Links in the description. As I said, there are going to be more videos about this. And until then, bye.